Welcome to the Leadership Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Jonno White. I'm the founder and principal consultant of Clarity. We are an Australian-based consultancy that works with leaders around the world, and our passion is to invest in people to become everything they're meant to be in order to fill the world with healthy organizations that people love to work for and customers line up to buy from. The goal of this podcast is to invest in you and your leadership. If you're just joining us for the first time, then feel free to check out consultclarity.org. That's our website, consultclarity.org. We have so many free resources on there, the most popular being our 7 Questions on Leadership series. We've had more than 1,500 leaders from around the world in all different sectors give their in-depth answers on leadership, what books they love, what they found most challenging, the most meaningful stories, how they structure their time through the day. That's free, so go and check it out. And we'd love to interview you about your leadership. I believe you have advice from your experience, your context, and your life so far that is important and can help other leaders. It's also a great way to give back. It's free to get involved, and you can do so by going to consultclarity.org/7-questions-interest, or just Google consultclarity.org 7 questions interest and fill out the form that pops up. We have a free resource for you on our website. It's called Leadership Survival Guide. It's a 57-page ebook. It has interviews with 10 world-class leaders, and you can go to consultclarity.org. It's right at the top, and get that today. We also have a daily email that we send out to over 15,000 leaders, and that email contains the highlights, our best content from our podcasts, our blog, my book, the books that we're loving that are out there about leadership. It's also the best way to get access to our masterclasses and workshops before anyone else. And there's also exclusive and limited special options just for subscribers. And you can subscribe by going to consultclarity.org/subscribe. Now, my gift to you is to work incredibly hard to provide the best leadership content I can to invest in you and your leadership. So if you're finding our content helpful, if you find this podcast helpful, then your gift to me could be this. If you do find it helpful, then write a review or rate our content and make sure you subscribe or follow. I can't emphasize enough how helpful that is. It really does help us to get the word out there so we can invest in more leaders to become everything they're meant to be. It also means a lot to me personally when people like you and people in our community share our content on social media. So if you do that, then please do look for me, Jonno White, to tag me, and look to tag Clarity on whatever platform you're on. And our team, including me, I'm always looking to see when people have mentioned us so that I can engage with you. And also we look at sharing content. So if you write something about something we've done, there's also a good chance we'll share that with our followers. So if you could do that, that is a massive, massive help as we try to invest in as many leaders as we can around the world. Last of all, you can check out my book about how to deal with difficult people even if you hate conflict. It's called Step Up or Step Out. It's available on Amazon. You can just look up Step Up or Step Out Jonno White, or you can go to store.consultclarity.org/book and check it out there. I have coached leader after leader after leader, and in more than 50% of the sessions, this topic comes up. How do I deal with this person? I'm finding it really difficult, and I just want to find a way that doesn't blow up to just to have a difficult conversation, to lead them better. How do I do that? There's a 3-step process that I outline in this book that I believe can help you. Okay, let's get into today's episode of the Leadership Conversations podcast. Enjoy. Welcome to another episode of the Leadership Conversations podcast. Today's guest is John Gies. John is the principal of Shelby Senior High School in Ohio. Welcome to the podcast, John.
Thank you, Jonno. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat with you, John, and to find out a bit about your story. First of all, can you tell our listeners who there are a lot of educators who listen, but also a lot of leaders outside of education. Tell us a bit about your school and a bit about what you do.
Okay. Well, this is my 16th year as the principal here at Shelby High School. We are a school of about 500 students in our building, and we have another about 130 students at a local vocational school. So we're right around 640 or so students. Good size, about a medium sized school in Ohio. And I actually graduated from Shelby. This is my hometown, so it's been good to come back and be here and give back to the community here at Shelby.
Yeah, that's incredible that you actually graduated from there. I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
that's awesome. Well, let's find out a bit more about your story. That's a good segue. To start with, if we go back to your childhood, John, when you were growing up, what were some of the moments, some of the themes, maybe from that time of your life that really shaped you to become the person and the leader you are today?
Well, I think I'd probably look at a couple of things. First, I am the second oldest of six kids, and my dad worked midnights at a factory here in town. And so he slept a lot during the day, and my mom didn't drive. So if we wanted to go somewhere, we walked or rode our bikes or got rides with friends or those things until we got old enough to drive finally. Then and we could do a few things. But with that, with so many brothers and sisters, we each took some different roles, and I kind of and I'm not sure how it kind of morphed into that, but I seem to have. Uh, Taking on some of the things to make sure everybody was okay and helping mom out with some different things. And then as I got older, helping dad out with some of the driving and running around some of my brothers and sisters. We played There was a story in the local newspaper one time when there were four boys, and we all four played little league baseball at different fields in town. And so getting there was always a journey of how was mom and dad going to get us to the games, and which ones were they going to go see. So it was always busy, but there were always things to get done, and I always tried to make sure things got done. And I'm not sure if that's just like a personality trait of mine, or just something that just kind of developed. I also think that even though I'm a public high school principal and a big believer in public high school, I went to a Catholic elementary school, and I think that that background of my faith has helped me also to try and it influences, I guess, in what I do and how you do things, and
Hmm.
just making sure you do the right thing. And I think some of that has been reinforced as I've gone through, teaching, going through college, going to teaching, and then moving into the administrative role.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you for sharing that. So, as you look back at that sort of season of your life, do you remember some of the first leadership opportunities you had, John, where you think back to leading a project or managing a group of people, or your first chance to really own own something and cast vision for something? What were some of your early leadership opportunities?
I think a lot of that in going through high school, just working in groups and always kind of trying to take charge on some things there in the different groups we had in class. Different sports teams that I was on. I was the captain of the track team, one of the two captains of the track team my senior year. And so you try to lead, by example. Try to get people to see, what you really are made of, and that what the value of hard work, and just continuing to work, push through some adversity and work through some things. So I think that was a big thing. um, Went through college and just doing some different organizations in college and taking on some roles there where I kind of helped lead those groups. um, After college, didn't get a teaching job right away, so I took on a job as assistant manager at a sporting goods store. So that was really the first time of being kind of a leader to other people, and a job
Mm.
opportunity, and that worked. It worked very well, and it was it was a little overwhelming at first, but then you just try and you do the things that you've been taught and that you've been trained, and I think the biggest thing is if I always try and focus on how you treat people, and I think if you treat people
Mm,
the right way, then it tends to help you out in a lot of things. So that was kind of the journey coming through. When I went into teaching, I taught social studies for 10 years, and I was a coach. I was assistant coach. Then I became a head track coach. So I think that helped me as far as organizational things and planning, and just trying to motivate young men into becoming better athletes and better people.
mm,
Kind of morphed into trying to figure out. I went back and forth on whether to become a guidance counselor or go into administration, and
mm,
decided on administration. So spent a couple years getting my master's degree and earning that my administrative degree, and just kind of led into a. My goal was 10 years in the classroom, and then move into an assistant principal role, and that's what I did. I did 10 years in the classroom at a couple of different schools, and then moved into an assistant principal role. Had the opportunity to come back to Shelby as an assistant principal, and worked with a guy who I just thought the world of, and he was the principal at the time. And unfortunately, he passed away of cancer during the year. And that was
mm.
a tough time because I then kind
Yeah,
of took over as the interim principal, and then I've been the principal ever since. So it's been kind of a journey, and a lot
yeah,
of things have happened, but I'm not so sure I can point at like one particular thing that kind of happened that got me going on that path.
yeah, yeah. No, thank you for sharing some of the
That
journey
was a lot
and
of things. There's a lot there. So.
no, it's great, John, and that is something I've found in the podcast is that it's never linear. It's never quite. There's always these interesting twists and turns when we don't think we're ready, and then a role comes. And we step into it, or we think we're
Yeah,
ready, and we step into it and go, "Oh wow, okay, maybe I wasn't ready, but are you ever ready?" It's that's leadership.
right.
I think a lot of the time. Um, I'm interested to know in that first job where you had your first chance to manage people, what were your biggest leadership lessons from that time? Because that must have been like swimming in the deep end a little bit.
It was. So I'm the assistant manager at a sporting goods store at this mall in Ohio, in Southern Ohio, and most of the employees were high school students. So I'm not there might be 4 to 5 years age difference in us, and here I am trying to make sure that things were getting done, and really these people were kind of like my friends too. I mean, we would go out and we played softball together. We did some different things together outside of the store. So now, which was one realm, and now when you're at work, you have to be their boss and make sure that everything gets done, make sure that they're treating the customers the right way, make sure that the store is getting clean and the shelves are being stocked. And so that was a good experience. I can still remember the first night, because it was a training period, and the first night that I was left alone and had to close by myself. And I just remember, looking around the store, and you just kind of take a deep breath and like, okay, I got this. We can do this. And you just dive right in, and your training comes in, and you just go back to the things that have helped you get to that point. And, and it went well. I mean, things went well, and we had it was a good run. It was a good job to have. And it was a good, I think, training for me to kind of help get me ready for the classroom actually and to become a teacher. As much as I
Yeah.
really would have wanted to be teaching right out of college and that first teaching job, it probably helped me a little bit doing this job instead of being right into the classroom.
Yeah, absolutely. What about leading sporting teams like you mentioned? What did you learn from those sort of roles that stuck with you now? Leading a public school, a public high school. What lessons have you learned from leading in a sporting context?
Yeah, you mean as a coach when I was coaching?
Oh, also when you were the captain
Um,
of sporting teams growing up as well.
okay, yeah. Yeah, I think what you see is that there are people of all different kinds of walks and all different kinds of levels. Um, there are people who were on our team that they were out there for for just to have some fun, to be part of the team. They knew that they weren't going to be real successful. They were okay with that, and they just wanted to be on there. Then you had people who, who thought they were better than what they really were, and so you had to deal with that kind of situation. And then you had people who weren't doing as well as they could, and they had the potential. You just had to keep pushing them and keep getting them to the point where they can do better. And really, that's being a high school principal too. I mean, you have teachers who are young, and they have to learn the skill and that art and science of teaching, and so you keep pushing them and you work with them. You have veteran teachers that you want to have them continue to get better, not just kind of coast a little bit. You have people just in all different areas and all different walks of life, and I think it just comes back to how do you learn to deal with those people and where they are, and still try to make them better. And I think the difference between being a high school principal and being, let's say, like the captain of a track team was, in the end, as a high school principal, it's our students who are going to benefit from that. So if we can get our teachers to be as strong and as good as they can be, our students then are going to be as strong and better. And so, like, the stakes are a little higher now, but the strategies and the skills that you use are the same strategies and skills that we used, way back when, my senior year in high school.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's I like the way you put that. It definitely is a case of what I like about what you said is really trying to understand the motivation of different people on your team and why they're there, and the more you can really step into their shoes and understand why they're there, what they want to get out of it, that makes everything so much easier.
Yeah, it really is. You do have to figure out where everybody is, and where
Mm.
they're coming from. And one of the things that I've kind of really learned along the way too is that when somebody's upset about something, what they tell you they're upset about is rarely the real root of the problem. You have to ask a little bit more and find out a few more questions, and you find out, like, okay, now I know why you're upset. This is just the what we're seeing on the surface, but it's usually a little more deeply rooted than that. And I think that just comes with just experience. I mean, it just comes with
Mm.
years of working with people and talking to them, and actually listening to them too, and really trying to figure it out. If I have an upset parent, it's usually the reason they're upset is not what they're telling you. You have to figure it out, go a little deeper and figure that out.
How do you do that?
Well, one of the things that I try to do is really get to know the students, and I'm very fortunate being in a school of 500 versus being in a school of where there's 500 in a graduating class. I can get to know my students a little bit more. I try and get out and about and try and talk to a lot of people. I don't like to get blindsided, so if there's an issue, I kind of try and figure that out ahead of time. But there are times where someone will come in and I didn't know this was a problem, and you have to kind of work through that. But the biggest thing is you have to do is really listen to them, and 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 just keep asking them some questions, because what they say is usually there's another cause somewhere underneath it, and it's just a matter of digging down and having a conversation. And but
Mm.
part of that is, if they're upset, you can't get mad back at them. You can't get upset. I mean, it just, you get people to. I heard this one time. Someone said you got to get people to act with their brain instead of their emotion. And when they're acting with their emotion,
Mm.
you really aren't going to get very far. And so it's getting somebody, calm down and really just
Mm.
listening to them and asking them some questions and being kind of empathetic. And
Yeah.
and then in the end, you try and get them. There may be a time where we're not going to agree on the situation, but at least we've got to a point where we both have said our piece and where we're coming from, and we can kind of understand each other. So the old agree to disagree sometimes is your best
Yeah.
is your that's your win. I mean, that's your situation, what you end up with. But you try
Mm.
and really work through some things and listen a lot. I mean, that really does, and it takes a lot of experience doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in your career so far, John, uh, interested to know who are some of the mentors or who are some of the leaders that you've watched and just really they've had a big influence on you and how you lead. You've seen them navigate tricky situations, or you've just seen them lead. What leading a school is a tricky situation in itself. I think it's a pretty tough gig, to tell you the truth. I think it's a challenge. Educational leadership. Who are some of the mentors and leaders you've admired along the way?
Well, it definitely can be a tough job a lot of days. I guess I start out when I was in elementary school. My sixth grade year, we had for various reasons. We didn't, I mean, it was just a number of teachers. It was like a revolving door. People kept coming in and leaving. Um, and we were a pretty close group. There was about 32 of us, I think, or 33 of us. And the unfortunate thing when you're a fifth grader, not having a lot, we were kind of, our sixth grader, I guess it was, we were kind of rudderless. I mean, we were just kind of going different places, and we were starting to act like ways we didn't normally act or things we shouldn't do. And so we moved to seventh grade, and we had a teacher named Keith Schmidt was my seventh grade teacher. And I always liked history, and he was our social studies teacher, and he got us kind of back on the right path. And he really took a liking to our group and got involved with us. He was our Boy Scout leader. He collected stamps. He was doing some things. He kind of helped get us involved in that. He gave me a lot of books to read because I love to read. And I could just see like his love of history and how good of a teacher he was. I knew then that I was going to be a social studies teacher. I mean, that was it. It was decided. And so when I went through
Wow.
school, I tried to the rest of my years of school. Then I tried to really watch what I thought were the good teachers, and I thought, what are they doing that makes them a good teacher? And so you're kind of making mental notes along the way, and you remember some of the things that how they treat people, activities we did in class, those kind of things. Um, and then going into teaching my first year, there was a guy that we would drive with. We had about an hour drive every day to school my first 3 years. And he and I drove together every day, and we just really talked things through about kids and about situations and how we dealt with things. So that was very helpful just to kind of bounce that off of somebody. Um, then, when I started my administration path, I had to do an internship. And the guy who was Dave Jones, who was the principal before me, I was teaching here at Shelby for 1 year, and I did my internship with him. And I remember he sat down and said, "Okay, we'll make this as you'll get out of it what you put into it, and what do you want to do?" And I wanted to do everything, and I wanted to really learn. And he gave me a number of tasks and just said, "Here's what you do." And we talked through situations, and it was just a really, really good experience. And it was a tough year. I was teaching in a block schedule for the first time. I'm doing my internship. We had our third child that year. I mean, I'm not sure I slept much that year. But then, so I get my first assistant principal job, and then Dave calls me one day and says, "Hey, I have an assistant principal opening. I want you to come back and be my assistant principal." So for 2.5 years, I got to work with him, and it was amazing. I mean, because he really taught me. I mean, he was funny. He just taught you how you treat people, And I always remember him saying, if you just do things the right way, do what's right, that's the number one thing, and then things will usually work out. And so I've really taken that to heart, and I remember those words, and I think I repeat them every day in my head too. But Dave was a great mentor, and like I said, unfortunately, Thanksgiving, we come back from Thanksgiving break, he calls me in and he says, "Hey, the doctors think I have lung cancer," and he was gone
Mm.
in February, and
Wow.
it was a very quick turnaround, and all of a sudden, we had in our district, we'd had a student pass away from cancer. We had a
Mm.
teacher at one of the elementary schools pass away due to another disease, and then Dave passes away of cancer. And it felt like the hits just kept coming. And I remember
Yeah.
thinking, how in the world am I going to get through this? Um, and I just remembered what he said and just do things the right way. And so you lean on the
Mm.
people around you, and we made it through that year. But it was a tough year.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that, John.
Mhm.
That's just I can hear the I work with a lot of schools, and I think it's a unique community, a school, and when you lose one
Mhm.
person in a school,
Oh, it's awful.
it's just the ripple effects of how it affects all different kids, parents, and so to lose three across, that's just I mean, I know you said that you really lent on that advice. How did you get through that? What did you learn from that year about leading an organization through grief, I guess? So what did you learn through that?
Yeah. Well, I knew that I had people on staff that the other teachers really respected, and I knew that I was going to have them help me. And so I would talk to them, and I would run things by them, like, "What do you think we should do here?" And I'd have some ideas, and we just really kind of leaned on each other to get through that year. And the idea was we still have to keep moving forward, and we still have to keep going. And what's the best way to do that? And everybody grieved in a different way. And I'm telling you, they were tough. There were days I'd come in, shut the door, and just it took me a good hour before I could go back out and be among the kids. And then there's other
Yeah,
days you're in there and you just go. I mean, so you have to kind of work through the process. But the biggest thing I learned that year was you can't do it by yourself. There's
yeah,
just no way. This job will kill you if you try and do it, all by yourself. And so
mm-hmm.
you find but part of this, being a school administrator, part of your job is to groom other teachers to become
Mm.
administrators. Because if we need more leaders. I mean, I'm not going to be doing it. I've been doing this for a long time, but I'm not going to be doing it forever. So you want good people to follow behind you, and so you have to give people opportunities to put into practice the things that you want them to do. And we talk about
Yeah.
that a lot with kids too. We talk about, for instance, I have a welcome thing in the athletic program
Mm.
in all of our sports, and I always put that athletics gives our kids the opportunity to put into practice the things we want them to do. We want them to treat others with respect, to work hard, to be part of a team, to overcome adversity. And what better than athletics to do that? And so they're going to fail, and that's okay. But you want them to keep going and push through that. And so that's part of the whole process, is just making sure that you give people an opportunity to help you. Um, and
Mm.
sometimes you really got to listen to them, and surround yourself with people that aren't just going to tell you what you want to hear. I have a guidance counselor that she's not afraid to tell me things that I need to hear, and it's not always pleasant to hear them, but I need her to do that. And so you really have to have people around you. And that's the great thing about being in education, though, is you have people all around you. You just got to make sure you use them the right way.
How have you? Because that's something that I hear a lot of leaders struggle with, and I know I've struggled with it myself. How do you foster that authentic? feedback? How have you fostered that where you've created that relationship where, say, your guidance counselor feels comfortable to tell you what she really thinks, how she really feels?
Well, yeah, it takes a little doing. You have to be able to give them, they have to, the biggest thing is people have to know that you're genuine. So when I'm giving praise, I'm giving specific praise, and you got to give praise. And when I'm giving criticism, I'm giving opportunities or some ideas of things that people can do to kind of help out or to get better. And you have to really do that back and forth, and you got to be willing to tell other people too. And this is probably the hardest part of this job, is that you have to tell people sometimes, like, hey, listen, this is not working. You can't keep doing this. You got to do something else, whether that be a student or a teacher. It's difficult because they look to you like you have all of the ideas. And I don't have all the answers. I just know that what we're doing now isn't working. Let's see if we can figure out a way, to get there. And when you involve people in the process, when you involve people in your solutions, then I think then that gives people the opportunity and the strength to say, okay, hey, we're not doing what you said we need to do. We've got to get better. And if I don't listen to them, then I'm not being real genuine with what I'm saying I want us to do, like the path I want us to go on, and they'll stop giving me that advice because they know it's not making a difference. So it's you're making yourself vulnerable, but you have to
Mm.
build that relationship with them where you give people the strength and the ability to showcase their strengths, and then you have to be willing to listen to it sometimes too and make some changes, and that's not easy all the time.
Mm.
But I think when you do that, and when if I can stand up in front of my staff and say, look, this is what we tried. This was wrong. This didn't work. We got to stop doing this and we got to try something else. Then I think then that they're more willing to say, okay, let's see if we can come up with a better idea. If for me to just, the old thing, the horse is dead, quit beating it. You got to get off the horse. If you keep doing that, beating the dead horse, then they're just going to, they're not going to respect you as a leader. They're not going to see you as kind of a visionary, and they're not going to come to you anymore and give you some advice or give some input. You have to be able to listen to them and take what they say to heart sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, well said, John. I wanna ask you a little bit. I love asking people about their mentors, and I hope this is okay.
Mhm.
I just love to hear stories of wonderful leadership from people that have really influenced you. So I would love to ask you to have a think um, about how obviously Dave had such an impact on you
Yeah.
as a
Mhm.
wonderful leader. Are there any stories that come to mind of how he handled things? There's that wonderful quote you've already mentioned about doing the right thing and things will work out. But any stories of how you watched him lead that have really stuck with you and come to mind at the moment?
Well, he had just a great sense of humor. And he would use that sense of humor all the time. It was real dry, but it would just, everybody just laughed around him. And he was generally in a good mood. But there were times that when he needed to be stern, when he got to that voice or that look, you just knew, like, oh, I better listen to him. He was one story about Dave. He was a very renowned football official here in Ohio, and at the college level and at the high school level. And he got picked to be the referee for a football all-star game between the best football players in Ohio and the best football players in Pennsylvania, called the Big 33. So he's the head referee. And there were some issues going on in the game. I think some little scuffle broke out during the game. And this is on TV. I mean, we're watching this game on TV, and the coach for Pennsylvania is a guy named George Chomp. He used to be one of the assistant coaches at Ohio State. He was a coach at Navy. I mean, he was a big name. And the Pennsylvania players weren't doing something very well, and the camera, and we all knew that look that Dave had. I mean, it was one of those. I mean, he gave you that look, you knew, and he always used two fingers when he waved you, when he waved towards you, and he all of a sudden the camera cuts to him, and he's looking over at George Chomp on the Pennsylvania sideline, and he gave him that look, and those two fingers came up, and he's waving him out onto the field, and I thought, even George Chomp gets that look. Look at that. So, but he just he was so funny, and just some of the things that he did and how he reacted with people, and just so well respected. I mean, he was a brilliant man, but he just would just treat people the right way, and I think that was the one thing
Mm.
that always stood out to me about Dave.
It's a wonderful lesson for all leaders is about treating people the right way, and I think
Mm,
I love the tightrope, the tension you mentioned there of, and it is a tension. It's about a both and it being leading with humor and also having the ability to have the difficult conversations, which I can really hear.
yeah,
Dave had that in spades as a leader. So thank you so much for sharing that. That's really special,
very
John. I
well.
appreciate it.
Mhm.
Well, what I want to do is I want to ask you a handful of questions as we sort of wrap up. Leadership Express questions. And so let me jump into them. The first question I have for you, John, is what book have you gifted to other people? What's a book that you've gifted to other people?
Well, um, I probably skew that a little bit because most of my gifts are usually to graduating seniors. So, and the book that I like to give, someone gave me when I graduated from college was Dr. Seuss, "Oh, the Places You'll Go," and that's a pretty good book for that time in your life when you're
Yeah.
leaving and ready to go off to different things. And so that's always a good one. I'd say that's probably been the most one that I've given away to others.
No, that's a great recommendation. My wife, Liz, and I, we just as of recording this now, we just had our first child, a little boy, 2.5 weeks ago. So
Oh,
his name's Roman,
congratulations!
and
Yeah.
yeah, thank you. So I love that recommendation because I think I'm going to go and buy that book because I think that's a great story to read, right? Like
Great,
a little
great
person.
book. Great book. Yes.
Oh, the places
Yeah.
you'll go. Yeah, I love that. That's a
Mhm.
wonderful recommendation. Thank you. I think I've had that one before. Actually, I can't remember in what context, but I love it when I have a book come up multiple times because it just represents the fact that different people, it's really had an influence on their life. So thank you for recommending that.
Yeah.
What about
Yeah.
right now, John? Are you in the middle of any great books? Are there any podcasts that you're loving? Any blogs or journals? They could be education specific or about anything you're really just enjoying reading, listening to, watching.
Well, a lot of my educational reading right now tends to be from different magazines that we get from our different associations. Um, and I've been trying to, well, Twitter, social media can be a horrible thing. Believe me, as a high school principal, I can tell you that. But it can also be some good things. And so there's a lot of people on Twitter that I try to follow and um, kind of see what they're doing and read some of their journals and blog posts and stuff too. So there's a guy named George Corus from Canada. There's a guy named Dr. Joe Sanfilippo from Wisconsin. Um, so those are two of the kind of the big ones I kind of follow a little bit. Mostly though, if I'm reading things that aren't education based, and I am a big historical. I was an old social studies teacher, so anything with history I like. Um, and so biographies are a big thing too that I like to read. So U.S. Grant book, I've kind of started that a little bit, so I'm trying to dive. I don't have a lot of time a lot of times at night to read it, but I'm trying to trudge my way through that. It's kind of a thick book, but so that's probably the one I'm reading right now. But I do try and keep up with a lot of the education stuff
Hmm.
through like some shorter journals and different things too.
Yeah, yeah, excellent. Um, what's a recent leadership lesson you've learned for the first time or been reminded of?
I would say you get reminded of it often that this job can humble you a little bit. And just when you think you have the answer and you know this is the way we want to go, you find out that it didn't go that right, and you have to change gears and try something else. So the fact is, I don't have all the answers, and I need some people around me to help out a little bit. And so I'm trying to work on the
Mm.
master schedule now for next year. And I keep coming up with this idea. Okay, this should work here, and then we go talk to somebody. I'm like, well, no, I can't try it then. So it's a big puzzle you try to put together, but hopefully we about got it licked here. But so I'd say my biggest thing is you need other people. You got to have others around you.
Yeah, yeah, no, I love that. It's great advice. Do you have any favorite questions you ask? You're in a one-on-one interview with a new staff member. You're in a with your team, or you're with a classroom of students. Any favorite questions you like to ask?
Well, I think in an interview, I always try to tell people that it's not your job to conform to us. It's kind of our job to conform to you. So, I don't want a new teacher coming in and just doing everything that we do. If I hire somebody, I want some ideas. I want to try some new things. And so I try to really focus on, okay, I've told you about us. Here's what we have. What do you think about that? How can you? What are some things you could do? What do you bring to the table that would make us better, make us a little different, and to really try and focus from that end. Um, by the time we've gotten pretty good about going through resumes and making phone calls, and that's one thing about when you've done this for 16 years. I kind of know a lot of people in Ohio about who are in education, and I can make a phone call, usually about 3 phone calls, where I really find somebody who really knows this person. So I can do all that background stuff, but what I really want to hear from that person is what can you bring to the table that would make us better? And that
I like that.
surprises people sometimes, but I think it's a really important question to ask.
Yeah, I like that, and I like that you're asking that from day one, from the interview, because you're
Hmm.
creating that expectation and giving that permission to say we're going to be asking you to help us get better, and
Right. Hmm.
we'll help you get better as you do that. But no, I love that, John. That's great. Um,
Yeah.
any great, or what's a great piece of advice you've received? It might be you've already mentioned one, that wonderful advice from Dave. Anything else that comes to
Yeah.
mind as a piece of advice around life, around leadership, that's really stuck with you and for some reason just pops into your head?
Um, I think the biggest thing I think I can think of is just don't don't be too serious. Just you got to have some fun. If you're not having fun every day, then you're really not living very well. I don't think so. You got to take some time just to kind of get away a little bit and just do something a little different. For me, it's really simple. If I find a day that I'm sitting at my desk for too long, and unfortunately those
Mm,
days happen, I make myself walk out in. I walk into a classroom. I can walk up to a lunch table and sit down and talk to kids, and it doesn't
mm.
take long before we're having a little fun and laughing and making a joke or something. So um, you got to get out among people and just enjoy the people who are around you. And I think when you take yourself a little too serious, sometimes you kind of forget that there's just a lot of good people out there.
Yeah, that's wonderful advice. Do you have any favorite quotes that you sort of live by, or just it's a quote that you tend to bring out often, or just it comes to mind regularly?
Yeah, there's one I even used it today to somebody too, and it's been credited to a couple of people. But luck is when preparation meets opportunity, and everybody thinks, well, you got lucky. Well, I worked pretty hard to get in a situation where when the event happened, I was ready to go. I mean, so if you're preparing well, when that opportunity comes around, it looks like luck, but and don't get me wrong, sometimes you're the benefit of a lot of good things that happen, but a lot of times, I said, luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah, I like that. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. That's a good one. Um, Now, this is not so serious in terms of movies or TV shows. There might be something really profound that, or there might be something you just love as a for switching off, or you find really funny. Any movies or TV shows that are sort of favorites of yours?
Oh, let's see. I mean, my favorite TV show right now, I am not a huge TV watcher. I watch sports and I watch a couple things during the week, but it's a crazy show, but Forged in Fire on the History Channel, where these people come in and they make weapons. They make knives and swords in a timed
Yeah,
contest.
yeah,
I just think it's amazing what they can do. They take this little piece of steel and they can make this beautiful thing out of it. And it's to me, it's pretty amazing. I like to do some things, work with my hands. I'm not, not the greatest at it, but I keep trying and keep practicing a little bit. Kind of puttered around the basement a little bit with some woodworking things. So that's a show that I try and catch on Wednesday nights. But other than that, there's not a lot of TV shows. Um, my probably all time favorite movie, I would say, is and my wife would answer this for me. I know too. The Shawshank Redemption, because it seems like every
yes,
time that's on TV, I stumble through it. And so the aside on that, that was actually most of that was filmed about 10 miles from here, from Shelby. We have an
ah,
old prison, a place called Mansfield, right nearby, and I have been to that prison, taken the movie tour a couple times, and seen some of the props from the movie and stuff. It's pretty amazing, and see it. But
that
I
is
just like
amazing.
the
Great
message
movie.
of hope in that. Yeah, that's a great movie. I just that message of hope, I think, is what. I mean, I can quote it. I can give you all the. I mean, I know. I can take you around on a little tour of the sites that they were using in the movie too, if you want. But that's probably the movie I probably like the best.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. Great recommendation. Okay, last question. If you could only give one piece
Mhm.
of leadership advice to a young leader, what would you say?
Oh, I would say only one, huh? uh,
You can
I
have
would
multiple if
say
you want.
again. I go back. Yeah, well, I go back to you're going to depend on people to be successful, and so you better treat them the right way. You can't
Mm,
leadership is not in a vacuum. It is among other people, and you just have to treat people the right way.
yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great thought, great advice. Um, well, for people who have really enjoyed your stories and some of the wisdom you shared with us, John, where can people find you at LinkedIn or Twitter, and also your school online if people are interested in just finding out more about what you do?
Well, let's see. Twitter, it's at John Geis one. That's my Twitter. I'm not on. That's about it for social media. It's about all I have time
Yeah,
for, I think. Anyways,
yeah,
uh,
that's right. Yeah.
our school, our school website is www.shelbyk12.org. And Shelby's a good place. It's been a great place for me and my family. Um, my three kids I got to sign their diploma as dad. So it's pretty neat
Mm,
that they were students of mine when I was principal. Um, so it's been a good place, and it's been a good run so far. So got a few more years
yeah.
left in him,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to thank our listeners for tuning in. Today's been a really special episode with John and sharing some wonderful stories from his leadership, but also just some really special stories about others around him and his mentor. And for our listeners, don't forget, I also have the Jonno White Leadership Podcast and the Leadership Question of the Day podcast, where you can go to continue to invest in your leadership. But I want to finish today by saying thank you to you, John, for being so generous with your time, for sharing so vulnerably and really sharing some really beautiful moments with us, as you talked about Dave, but just wonderful leadership lessons about doing the right thing by people um, and just focusing on how you treat people and focusing on not doing it on your own. Wonderful, wonderful lessons for leaders in any role, in any country, in any sector. So, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, John. It's been a joy.
Well, you are more than welcome, and thank you too.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Leadership Conversations podcast as much as I did. If you're joining us for the first time, don't forget to check out consultclarity.org. That's our website, consultclarity.org. We have so many free resources on there, including our 7 Questions on Leadership series. We've had more than 1,500 leaders from all over the world in all different roles, in different industries, answer these 7 questions on leadership, and leaders give these in-depth answers around how they spend their time, a book that's been significant for them. It's just a gold mine. It's completely free to access, so go to consultclarity.org and look for that. We'd also love to interview you about your leadership. I believe your experience, your life, your context means that you have advice on leadership that other leaders can learn from. Yes, you, if you're going, not me, well, no, I really believe you would have something to add. So if you're looking for a way to give back, it's completely free to get involved. And we would love to interview you through the 7 Questions on Leadership. You just go to consultclarity.org/7-questions-interest, or Google consultclarity.org 7 questions interest and fill out the form and get involved. We have a free resource on our website called the Leadership Survival Guide. It's a 57-page ebook, 10 world-class leaders giving their thoughts on leadership, and that's completely free. It's available on our homepage, consultclarity.org, right at the top, so make sure you go and get that and download it today. And we have a free daily email that you can subscribe to. We send this out to over 15,000 leaders from around the world. And it contains the highlights of content from our podcasts, our blogs, our books we're reading. It's got the best content, and it gives you exclusive, limited, early access to our masterclasses, workshops, new products, special offers. It's all for our subscribers. You can go to consultclarity.org/subscribe and join 15,000 other leaders. And you know, my gift to you is to work really hard, particularly through the Leadership Conversations podcast. I have been blown away by the quality of the leaders, and I'm learning as much as anyone in doing these interviews. So I'm having a great time. And my gift to you is to keep lining up the best leaders I can to invest in your leadership. Your gift to me, if you're finding this helpful, there is something that you could do that would help us out massively. And that is to write a review and to leave a rating for our podcast or wherever you're watching or listening to this. I can't tell you how much that helps us out. Also, subscribe or follow. It really does make a difference in helping us to help more leaders become everything they're meant to be. Another thing that means a lot to me personally is when I see our community share our content. So if you do share this or any other piece of content on social media, then thank you, and please do that. And look for me, Jonno White, or Clarity, and tag us in your post. Our team is always looking for posts to engage with from our community, and there's also a chance that we'll share your content to go beyond and share it with our followers. Last of all, you can check out my book. It's called Step Up or Step Out: How to Deal with Difficult People Even If You Hate Conflict. I wrote this book because 50% of the coaching sessions I have with leaders, this topic comes up again and again and again. And it's this idea of, how do I have this difficult conversation? How do I lead this person better when I'm finding them difficult? Or in some cases, you look and you say, I think I might be leading a difficult person. They're just quite difficult to lead, or I'm finding them quite difficult to lead. So there's a 3-step process that I unpack in Step Up or Step Out. And the amazing thing, and I've literally done this myself, and I've heard it anecdotally from other leaders as I've coached them, is that if you follow this process, you will see that person step up and change their behavior or make a decision, which is to step out some of the time. 95% of the time, people will step up or step out in just 4 weeks. And I stand by that. It's you have to read the book to understand, but I really do believe in it, and I've experienced it firsthand. It works. So you can go to Amazon, look up Step Up or Step Out Jonno White, or store.consultclarity.org/book. Well, thank you so much for listening. We're going to be back with a new episode next time of the Leadership Conversations podcast. And I hope today has helped you to take another step towards becoming the leader you're meant to be. See you next time.